Well, we've been talking to Phil Gawne over a couple of interviews on here on MTTV, but the reason we're actually down here at the railway station is about the balloon that went up when people found out that you were going to make some alterations to this iconic building here in Douglas. You've released some pictures, we've got them here, and we'll put them up on the screen. A lot of people don't like what you're up to.
Well, I think a lot of people don't like what they think we're up to, and that's I think the most important aspect of this. I think the lesson that we should learn from the department's perspective is that we need to improve slightly on our communication. We did actually involve a number of the railway heritage organisations right at the very beginning in terms of discussions about what we were proposing, and we asked them for ideas and asked them to give us some support by way of any photographic evidence, things like that, so that we understood a bit better. Or at least that's how it's been explained to me anyway. So I think to begin with, we started off doing it the right way. We then worked up our plans, and the plans were then submitted for planning permission. And I think that's the bit where we went wrong. We probably, when we worked up the plans, should have gone back to the railway heritage organisations and said, this is what we're proposing to do. Are you still comfortable with this? Do you think these are reasonable plans? And I think at that stage, if we could have talked it through, explained a little bit more about what we were trying to do, people may have been a little bit less concerned.
I mean, normally the government puts things to public consultation anyway these days. It seems to be the way to go. At least you get people putting their tuppence worth in.
And I suppose we don't when it comes to refurbishment of buildings generally. However, I think what's been absolutely clear, and I think it's fantastic, is the level of support that the public have clearly demonstrated for this building. They don't want it demolished, they don't want it destroyed. Actually, neither do I. You know, I'm passionate about heritage and culture. I think people, anyone who knows me or knows of me will know that I have been for all my political career and most of my adult life passionately engaged in protecting and preserving our heritage and culture. So I'm not going to do anything to this building which fundamentally destroys the character of the building.
Well, we'll take our cameras round so we can talk this out. Let's start up with the clock tower, for instance. Now, the clock stopped, but it apparently had to stop because it's damaged inside because there's some subsidence going on?
Yeah, we've occasionally tried to get the clock going again and get the clock people over to fix it and all, but the casing of the clock keeps twisting because the tower is settling. And when I say settling, that sounds quite a nice innocuous term. Settling means, I suppose, the foundations are starting to give way.
Well, we can see a crack here. That's quite a big crack.
And actually, there's some more pictures, unfortunately, on the inside that you'd have the opportunity to get today, which demonstrate very clearly that there's some fairly major structural problems with that. Now, to my mind, that clock tower at the end of Athol Street is one of the iconic features in Douglas. I mean, I would say it's the most important thing. It's not the thing that everyone coming to Douglas knows about Douglas.
But if they weren't to be missed, wouldn't it?
It would be absolutely missed. So there's quite a significant part of the budget will need to go onto fixing up the clock tower and repairing the steps. It is, quite an important aspect, and I think we need to do that.
Sure. I mean, the main building, we're looking around here now, there's a lot of storage going on. That's downstairs, and then we go up, we put our lights on, we're going up the staircase to another area which is full of bits and bobs. Again, the shot up to the rafters, it's looking like it's quite dilapidated.
Absolutely, and again, I think as the new minister, I can hold my hands up and apologise that this work hasn't been done over the last 10, 20 years, perhaps when it should have been done. But of course, like a lot of things in government, there is a fair amount of make, do and mend because we can't afford to do everything all at once. But I think, as you've seen, the state of the building is such that we do need to get on and do the basic refurbishments at the very least. Now, of course, in the current economic climate, just doing basic refurbishment isn't enough. Particularly, as you said, there's a lot of empty and fairly wasted space there. We really do need to do more than just refurbish. We need to try and make the most of that space.
Can we talk about the mezzanine level? Because, I mean, obviously that was, I think, put in the 90s, what is there now. You come up with this great proposal. Is that what people want, though, or do they just want it to be as it was, literally, go right back in time, rather than this sort of tinkering with it and modernising?
I think that's exactly where the railway expert heritage organisations are coming from. They believe that we should just go back entirely to what was there. Now, of course, if you look around the building, which we have done already, you've seen the shots of the state of the outside of the building. It is not as it was. So I think what we're proposing will bring us a little bit closer back to what it was. The heritage enthusiasts I've spoken to so far would argue differently. What we're trying to do now is find a way in which we can reach some compromise in terms of the design, so that the people who are concerned about what we're about to do will have a reasonable amount of reassurance.
You've got the money to do this then? I mean,
no,
you're saying you're hard up, but then you've got to find
it's
how many million?
It's in the budget. So it was agreed in the budget in February that this should be a capital item. But it's one of those items that I will have to go back to Tynwald to release the money. So if Tynwald at that stage says, actually, no, we don't want to do this, then that's that's Tynwald's prerogative. So I'm not taking anything for granted on this. But I do know that having been around the building, having seen the state of the building, and understood all the concerns of the management that operate the building, it is in a poor state of repair, and it does need to be fixed.
Is it high priority? Because I mean, I've heard that money needs to be spent between Laxey and Ramsey on the MER line, which there's a serious problems potentially building up there on the bridge, and you must have heard that as well.
Absolutely. Well,
where did you go with the money?
There was a report produced, about 3 or 4 years ago, which demonstrated very clearly that there had been significant underinvestment for many decades in the railway. So we are in the sort of the final throes of bringing ourselves back to where we should have been had we done the investment. You can find the money for that as well then? Well, there are other capital schemes that have been approved in the budget, which I will again have to go back to Tynwald to
Are you confident you'll get it?
For. Well, I don't know. What I will do is present the best case that I can. It is now my responsibility to look after these things. I think there is a very strong case for us to do this, but whether Tynwald agrees to go down that route or not is really a matter for Tynwald. It's not a matter for me to assume that they're going to support me.
Okay. And back to this, where do we go now?
Well, I will continue. I've got another meeting next week with the Railways Heritage organisations and the Victorian Society as well, to see whether I can convince them that what we're doing is the right thing, or indeed to see whether they convince me that we need to do things differently. And that will be a genuine discussion on my part. I can see that the plans that we've put together are reasonable, but I can also see that there are some fairly reasonable points on the part of the heritage transport groups as well. So we'll see where we end up.